Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. This is the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel, or Showing Up to Life podcast and YouTube channel, whichever one you really want, because, your life is life, right? Like, that's the thing. We show up for life. If we want to look at it as showing up for our own experience, well, that's fine, right? But we're also showing up for a collective experience. So I'm calling it either way, right? I mean, either one works, right? So welcome. I'm really excited to be here with you today. Today is Wednesday, September 1st, I believe, right? September 1st or August 31st. Is it the 31st? I got to look. Sorry, folks. Today is September 1st. You probably already knew that. So anyway, welcome to this September 1st episode of the Showing Up to Life podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Art Burns. And as I said, I'm very excited to be here with you today. Today is my Monday, and it's your Wednesday. I don't know when it is that you're listening to this or watching this, but when I'm recording it, it is your Wednesday and my Monday. And so I want to tell you that I had a wonderful weekend. I say wonderful, but wonderful in a very sort of abstract way, I suppose you might say, right? Monday was amazing. I spent the day on the golf course with my son, and it was just beautiful and wonderful. And I cherish every memory that I brought from that day. It was really fantastic, right? It was hot. It was sweaty. We got maybe a little tinge of sunburn, but it was fun, and it was awesome. That was his first time out on a golf course ever. It was a par 3 course, really simple, little short course, and we played it twice. When we were done, he was like, can we play again, please? It's like $8 or something. So I was like, yeah, let's go, let's do it again. Second time around, he parred 2 holes. That means that, for all of you who don't know golf, right, each golf hole has a number that's called the par, which is either 3, 4, or 5. Very rarely you see a par 6. Mostly it's 3, 4, or 5, and that is the prescribed amount of shots that it's supposed to take you to get it from the tee into the hole. Okay, so on a par 3 course, you hit it, it goes on the green, you putt twice, you get it in the hole, and that's a par 3. And so my son did that twice. It was amazing. So anyway, that was great. Yesterday, however, yesterday is my therapy day. And I think I've told you all here that I am doing this program that's like, it's really built around the concept of rites of passage, and when we experience trauma as children, right, our development is thwarted, right? We're not supposed to use the R word, but that's where it comes from, right? There's a retardation of our progress in our development, right? That doesn't mean that we're less smart, right? Because our individual areas of our brains are developing, right? So it's not like they call mental retardation. It's not that. Those areas where the parts of your brain are actually not developing past a certain, sort of age range, right? So my brain developed fully. It did not integrate fully, okay? And so in a lot of ways, what happens is, but it's also just beyond the brain science of it. It's also just maturity, right? Like there's, you also kind of get stuck in childhood a little bit, right? Like your inner child never gets to grow up, not properly anyway, right? Because there's like ways in which we cut it off, and it's very complicated. I don't want to go very deeply into that subject right now. Lots of great material out there. If you want to look up the work of Gabor Mate or Bessel van der Kolk or Thomas Hubel, Hubl, thinking this. Oh, and of course, Peter Levine, right? If you want to look up any of those 4 people, those are really the 4 true experts in our time in trauma work. And so you can learn a lot from reading or watching YouTubes or finding online seminars and stuff like that, right? But so suffice it to say, though, that part of what happens is that we don't go through a normal maturation, right? And so what the work that I'm doing with my I don't know if you would call him a therapist or a guide or a coach, but what I'm doing with him is going through a process, an 8-week process that is meant to be a rite of passage, right? So that as we're going through this process, I become I grow and I develop through this process. And it's really intense. It's really wonderful and intense. Yesterday was the third class, and I swear I spent the third session, and I swear I spent the entire time just sobbing and just, a lot of stuff is coming up, a lot of memories, a lot of, implicit memories. So just things that my body's feeling. We've kind of identified this motion that I do that's like really like, wow, every time I get into this space, I do this motion that I'm doing right now. You folks can't see it, but I like make this motion with my hand that really, you can't see it on the podcast, obviously. But it's almost like a wheel, like a momentum kind of thing that I feel. And that's what I feel in my body, right? It's like cyclical. And we're going to get into that in a couple of days. I have another podcast about how that works, about the cyclical nature of life. But anyway, I just wanted to share, as I told you I would, that the progress of this program is truly amazing. It really is. And I'm, again, only 3 weeks in. Nothing's solved yet. Nothing's fixed yet. I don't know that anything ever gets fixed or solved. But what it does is we get to change our relationship to it, right? And that's the key, right? And that's really what mindfulness is, right? It's changing our relationship not only with our life and the life of the collective life that we're living, right? Showing up to it in a different kind of way, right? But it's also changing our relationship to all of the things that cause us to not show up to our life, right? So whether that's trauma for you as it is for me, or just, chronic stress that comes from just, work or what have you, these are the things that are preventing us from showing up to our life. They're causing the emotional reactivity. They're causing the emotional reactivity causes us to take action, which then those actions have consequences and counteractions, which then, cause us more stress and we get stuck in this cycle, right? Again, there's the cycle, right? And so we will talk about that for sure. It's a big subject of how the idea of cycles work, and it's really the universe runs on cycles. But we'll talk about that maybe even tomorrow. But today I wanted to talk about the automatic nature of what happens with us, right? Like, whatever that thing is in your life that causes you to not show up to your life, whether it's stress, whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, whether it's trauma, whether it's all of that, and it can be for sure. That's the thing that we change our relationship to in mindfulness work. Right? We reestablish ourselves vis-a-vis that thing. And in doing that, we now see other ways in which we can progress through it, right? We see other paths forward that were absolutely invisible to us before. And so this is why it's really helpful, why mindfulness is all about the awareness, right? Because as we bring awareness into our, awareness of ourselves internally, externally, awareness of the surroundings, right? Just really deepen our awareness. Then what we start to do is we start to see when we're operating from this place, right? We start to see when we're being just automatically reactive, and how that reactivity is causing these other issues. And we can start to see that, right? Now, the next step is what I'm here to talk to you about today, which is intention, right? Because that is really, the opposite of automatic is intentional, right? Now, it is said, I'm going to take a sip of tea before I tell you this next thing, because this is pretty intense. It is said that up to 95% of the thoughts that we have every day, right? 95% of them. Not only are they automatic, which we know that to be true, right? Like you could not possibly handle all the thoughts that come through your mind in in an intentional way, right? Like they have to be automatic, right? At least a good part of them. Maybe not 95%, but a big part of them. So we know that 95% of them are likely to be automatic, right? They're just like, oh, I hear the whistle on the kettle, it's time, like that kind of thing, right? Just completely automatic, reactive kind of stuff. And that's what gets us through our day, right? But here's the thing. Not only are these 95% of our thoughts completely automatic, but it is believed that they are also 95% of our thoughts are just duplicates from the day before. Now that's kind of sobering to me, right? First time I heard that, I was like, I almost fell off my chair, I think, and not because I was drunk. um, 95% of our thoughts are not only automatic, not only are they outside of our conscious awareness, but they are also a repeat of the same thoughts that happened yesterday. So what that means, right, is because the thing that you have to understand about the thoughts, right, is that the thoughts are the antecedent to action, right? Like I just said with the tea kettle, right? I hear the tea kettle, right? My ear picks up a sound, right? A vibration, an energy and information vibration coming through the air into my ear. That is hooking up with a part of my brain that understands that and converts that sound, that energy frequency into an identified sound. The tea kettle whistle is blowing. As soon as that happens, now I have the thought, get up and go pour the tea, right? Because the tea water is ready, right? Now, of course, it's a very simple example, but that's how it works, right? So when we have a thought, that's what creates our action, right? And so in the morning, right, when you get out of bed on the same side of the bed every morning, you go to the washroom, you do your whatever routine you have, right, most of that is automatic, right? And most of the people in our in the world, right, myself included, if I'm not being intentional about it, within the first 5 minutes or so of waking up, what are we doing? We're picking up our phone. And we're seeing like, okay, check with Facebook, check with, check with my messages, check with my emails. Maybe people don't really check emails these days, but check in with TikTok, check in with, who liked my video from yesterday, check in on Instagram, right? Check in with all my different social media platforms. And now I'm back exactly where I was yesterday morning at the same exact time, right? Because I did the same exact thing yesterday at this time, sitting here on the edge of my bed the same way, hopefully not in the same underwear, but who knows? But either way, right? That's what's going on here, right? And so as we go through this and we go through these automatic sort of tendencies, but also repeated patterns of behavior, right? Then we wonder why it's so hard for us to lose weight, right? We wonder why it's so hard for us to change the things that we can do. We wonder why we always feel a certain way, right? We wonder why we're so like, sometimes, right? Well, because that keeps going, right? It's not just like in the morning, like after you've checked all your social media, it's like, okay, now I'm back. Let me go on my unique individual day here. That's not what happens, right? You continue to do it, right? Now, y'all, I don't get political on this podcast, right? And I'm not going to now, but it's important to understand something about the way the world works that is, purposefully kept in the dark, okay? And what this is the reality that when we're automatically going through our day and when we're repeating the same behavior from day to day to day to day to day, right? The people who kind of that 1% to 5% of the people who run the world, right? They say that 1% runs the world. The 4% are their puppets, right? 90% are of the people in the world are asleep, and there's 5% of us who are trying to wake up the 90%, but the 5% is fighting that, right? And so it's like this equation I saw from this guy on TikTok the other day, right? It's exactly right. I mean, that's exactly how it runs, right? Do you realize that the media companies in the world, right, or at least in the Western world, right, that every news outlet that you could possibly get content from, right, every newspaper, every television show, every radio station is basically owned by 6 different corporations. Every single thing that you can find is owned by one of 6 corporations, right? So they're feeding us the information, banking on the fact that we're not intentional about it, right? That we're just kind of going through it and we're just soaking it in and soaking it in and soaking it in and soaking it in. And that's how they create a narrative, right? And that's how they create a narrative that they also create what they call manufactured consent, right? This is a Noam Chomsky concept, right? That the news is out there telling you about how bad it is for Afghani women, so that we can go and bomb them. Right, which we did, right, and so I don't know why I'm laughing for that, but again, this feels, I guess, because it feels uncomfortable talking about politics on this podcast, and I'm not going to go any further with that, except to say that there's a necessary solution for this, right? Because if you just go through your day, just day in and day out without bringing a conscious awareness to what is happening, well, then they win. Right? You are truly just their puppet, right? They're just feeding you what they want you to know, and that's all you know, right? And so it's very important to get some kind of intentionality into our lives so that we can start to change things, right? We can start to change the cycles. We can maybe, bring more awareness to say, well, hold on a second, this thing that I'm hearing on the news every day, maybe it's not true. There are independent news sources that you can find that will counterbalance some of the stuff that you're seeing on the mainstream media, okay? And so it all comes down to intention, right? And that's really pardon me, another sip of tea. That's really the point of today's podcast here, right? Is the idea of intention, right? Intention is, and we've talked about this here before. I mean, this is the concept of intention is absolutely integral to mindfulness, right? I mean, that's what it is, right? It's paying attention on purpose, right? That's intentionally doing it, right? We are intentionally bringing an awareness to our moment-to-moment experience, okay? So it's baked into mindfulness, right? But you can also add it outside of your mindfulness practice, right? It kind of always becomes part of the mindfulness practice because even setting an intention itself is a practice of mindfulness, right? So we're not going to split hairs when it comes to that. But my point is that you can cultivate intention in a very sort of semi-formal way, if you will, okay? And I think I've talked about this before, but it's really powerful, and I really recommend you try it, okay? Because it really can start to bring some necessary changes to our lives in a very important way, okay? So, and in the beginning, you're going to have to remind yourself of this practice, right? Before I get into the practice, hold on a second. So when we set an intention, right, again, it's integral to mindfulness as a rule, right? Just full stop, right? But what we're doing when we're setting an intention, right? We're kind of giving our brain a sort of guidepost, right? We're saying like, okay, I'm going to set this mark out there in the dark space of my mind. I'm going to set this mark out there. And that mark is something that is going to catch my attention from time to time and kind of draw me back into it, right? That's what an intention does. But here's the thing. In the beginning, you don't, like you set the intention and then I lost it. I forgot about it. It disappeared out there in the darkness. I didn't get to fulfill that intention, right? But that doesn't mean that it didn't work, okay? And the more often, and that's the other thing, is that intention requires some repetition, especially depending on what it is that we're, being intentional about. But certainly if we're trying to undo some of these automatic behaviors and these repeated behaviors that we've been doing for, millennia, right? It takes some work, right? And it's going to take a few efforts before, you set your intention in the morning and it's like, okay, that's my intention for the rest of the day and I got it. It's like with me all day and it's not a problem and I never forget it, right? It's going to take a while before you get to that point, right? But with repetition, that is exactly the point that you do get to, right? Just like repeating, mindfulness practices, right? Just like when you do, if you meditate every day, right, over a period of time, you start to realize how, okay, yeah, my mind wandering, like I realize it more easily, more readily. I'm able to more easily and readily bring it back. I feel more sense of control over, right? That didn't happen on the first day. That happened because of day by day by day by day practice, right? Just like the neuroplasticity of our brain, right? It doesn't change after just one thing of, doing one thing differently. It changes over the course of time in repetition. Okay. So in the beginning, but even in the beginning, you're going to even have to set a reminder for you to set your intention, right? You're going to even forget about that because of the nature of the automatic, repetitious brain that I just talked about, right? So in the beginning, you're definitely going to have to, or at least most likely, you're going to have to employ some kind of assistance to try to get you to get into this practice, okay? But here's what the practice is. It's so simple, right? When you wake up in the morning, and really do this before you even get out of bed. Do it before you even, like, if you can remember, do it before you even open your eyes, right? And you're just simply going to set an intention. It sounded weird to say "n" in, but you're just going to set an intention, right? Now, this intention could be anything. Does not matter what it is, right? You really want to try to find something that's alive for you, right? So, for instance, if you have a tendency to be, say, emotionally reactive, right? I'm going to set the intention today to be less reactive, okay? And stick with the same intention day by day by day. Do that for like a week or so, right? Because you want to like work on that one thing. And then once that's somewhere, now switch to something different, right? But work on the same thing for at least a few days in a row, right? If not a week or so, okay? So every morning, you're going to set the intention. I'm setting the intention to be less reactive today, okay? Now, as I said, in the first few days, that's the last time you're going to think about it. Right now, you could certainly set reminders throughout the day. You could put Post-it notes everywhere in your life. Put them on your forehead. Walk around with Post-it notes everywhere to remind you of your intention. You don't really have to do that though, because here's the thing that happens: the next day, even though you forgot all about it, right? If you can remind, if you have a Post-it note on your ceiling, so that when in the morning you see set intention, right? And every morning you do that, well, guess what? Maybe it's not the third morning. Maybe it's not the fourth morning. Maybe it's not the fifth morning, right? But at some point, you're going to set that intention. And then during your day, it's going to pop into your mind like, whoa, wait a second. My intention. Right? Now I'm feeling myself being emotionally reactive. Let me pause for a moment. Let me check in. Let me do my mindfulness practices that Art Burns told me about. And I can get past this. Because I'm aware of it. And I'm aware of it because I set the intention to be aware of it. Ultimately, this intention is going to permeate every area of your life, right? And once you kind of get a sense of how well that intention works, well, then the next one's going to be that much, sort of more comfortable to slip into. And so on and so on. And this is how we break the cycle of automatic, because in the morning, right, you're doing something completely different now, right? You're starting the day with this thought that we've never had this thought before. What is this thing? This is different. We haven't even gone to the bathroom yet. We haven't picked up our phone yet, but look at us. We're doing something different. And it feels wonderful. So I want you to try that out. Seriously, I do. I want you to check it out for like a week, right? So maybe from now until next Wednesday, you pick one thing. And of course, I say intention to be less emotional reactive. That's kind of a hard one to pick. That's hard to do because the emotional reactivity is based on so much other stuff. So let's pick something a little easier for you, right? So let's say I set the intention to pause more often. Right? Or I set the intention to do, this is a great one. And this is a perfect one where you can start with, okay? I set the intention to do 3 kind things every day. Or today, rather. I set the intention to do 3 kind things today. Now, kind thing is a very broadly defined item, right? So that could be just thinking of somebody kindly. That could be holding the door for somebody. That could be, paying for the person behind you at Starbucks. That could be paying the toll of the car behind you. It could be any number of things. It could simply be, seeing somebody out on the street and saying, hey, your hair looks really good. Like anything. It could be, and it could be really fun too, right? And you don't have to stop at 3, right? You could say, I'm going to do 10 kind things. I'm going to do 30 kind things, right? I believe in kindness, so the more you're going to do, the better, But it doesn't also have to be kindness. It could also be, I'm setting the intention to have less snacks today. I'm having the intention to drink less caffeine. I'm setting the intention to walk more, right? So instead of taking, maybe you have a chance, like in New York City, I always had the chance to take the subway to the Metro North to take me upstate where I lived, or I could walk. I'm setting the intention to walk, And so, and again, it's just about working with your mind and becoming more intentional about everything, right? Because that's when you become intentional about, like, wow, like I'm watching this news and I'm feeling my body react to it. Let me push away for it for a moment and sit with it and come back to it and see if intentionally, does it seem different when I come back to it, right? Can I see the manipulative qualities of this news? I can. I see it all the time. Can I see that, when a politician is saying they're going to promise to do this thing, right? Can I see that? Can I be intentionally objective about that and not feel, so emotionally, invested in that, right? To the point where when the politician breaks their promise, which they do all the time, I don't feel anger and a personalized, emotion from that. But whatever the intention that you start, and if you want help, if you want to like try to figure out some intentions, I'm happy to help you do that. Okay, you have a coaching session already in your name. All you got to do is claim it. The link is in the description today. Okay, but do it for a week and see how it feels. Okay, and then eventually, like I said, not after just 1 week, but eventually, if you keep doing this and keep practicing mindfulness, which is intention in and of itself, then eventually that's where we get to be intentional about all the things we're doing, all the things we're thinking, all the things we're experiencing, all the ways in which we're expressing ourselves. It can all become intentional. And once it does, we feel a vastly elevated level of control in our lives. Control of ourselves. And that's one of the things we realize, that we don't control anybody else or anything else, but we get a level of control for ourselves. And that's a great starting point. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please see below for the link to your coaching session. And also there's a link for Patreon. If you're interested in supporting this work, even just a couple dollars a month really helps. So I'm going to put that link down there for you too. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll be back in tomorrow. Take care.